Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Andrew Neville, and we are here to do a live Q&A on adrenal fatigue. We're going to talk about what it is, what it isn't, how misunderstood it is, how it's connected to so many chronic diseases that we see out there these days. It's hard to even fathom, what all it's connected to. This experience, I actually enjoy quite a bit because what I get to do is answer questions, right, and challenge certain kind of beliefs and concepts and things like that we all develop, throughout our lives with regard to health and disease in general, but specifically with regard to adrenal fatigue, because there is a ton of misinformation out there, misconceptions. Just flat out, wrong information, right? Just Google adrenal fatigue. The first stuff that comes up is, stuff from Harvard. Adrenal fatigue isn't a thing. And I can tell you that, for the past 25 years, I've been helping people heal from that thing that isn't a thing. And people feel better. Their symptoms go away. They get their lives back. So to me, that's a thing. Am I using antidepressants? No. Am I using anti-anxiety meds? No. Am I getting people off the medical merry-go-round? Maybe. That's a whole other conversation. Okay, so welcome as you join in. Let us know where you're watching us from. If you have any questions, please, by all means, put them in the comments. Suzanne's managing the comments and does an incredible job. She'll get those to me. I do have a list of questions that I will be going off of. Of course, this is going to be recorded and posted. So we'll have all this information as well. I do have to say that I am not your doctor. So this conversation does not equate to a doctor-patient relationship. Always talk to your physician before making any changes to your healthcare regime. But I am going to do everything I can to explain to you how I see the ins and outs of this and what's going on from my 20-some years of experience in doing this and working with patients on a daily basis. If you are a current patient, welcome. That's great. Listen in. We can never know too much about all this stuff. This forum, though, is more for the public, right? And it's more for me trying to kind of introduce people who are somewhat newer to this, just try to help get those questions answered. If you have a question, you can write it in and we'll put it towards the end. And if there's time, I'll try to get to it. But if you have a specific question, this isn't the place to be answering that. You want to go to coaching hour or office hours within the program, reach out on our chat and, one of the coaches will get back to you. I do have several programs to treat this, which, we'll talk about here and there. One of them is I'm pretty excited about because we're revamping our core program. So we're revamping that whole program. That is an information-only program, which we're pretty excited about. That's going to be launched in April, which is really it's mainly for people that can't, have probably spent all their money trying to chase down these symptoms and secondary dysfunctions and all that stuff, or people that just can't, that don't have the cash to be able to, afford one of the programs that offers much more support and guidance through that. But with that information, it's a great start for people to be able to start to get ahead with the basic steps. Doesn't offer support, unfortunately, because there's a cost to that. But the information alone, helps. It does help quite a bit. Or it's good for people who are just, good self-starters and they can do what I ask them to do, which is a cool thing. Okay, again, welcome everyone. Let us know where you're from. And let me just make sure we're up and running. I forgot to check in. We're good. Thank you very much. And without further ado, okay. Pardon me. Sarah says, would you have cortisol issues with this? If cortisol is fine, then the adrenals are okay. Okay, so I'm not sure what the first part of that sentence means, but if cortisol is fine, then the adrenals are okay. No. No. And, I tell my coaches, and patients as well, if there was only one test that I could have, and I was only allowed to have one value for my patient, it actually wouldn't be a cortisol level. It would actually be a DHEA level. So DHEA is the other major adrenal hormone in the body. And actually, pound for pound, we have more DHEA in our body than we have any other hormone. It affects all cells throughout the body, inside the brain, head to toe, everything. It affects everything. So there's two patterns of DHEA in our life: age and stress. The age pattern is DHEA is nice and high when we're young. It actually helps initiate puberty. So starts off puberty nice and high, teens, 20, 30, 40. After age 40 or so, it starts coming down. Test somebody in their 70s, they got about a quarter of the DHEA they had back when they were 20. The other pattern is stress. And with stress over time, whether that stress is current or that stress that you had in the past has imprinted in the limbic system danger, right? And worry, where the limbic system is over perceiving your environment as stressful. So what happens is then, our bodies get stuck in a stress response, even if there's no stress now. So either of those two things can eventually deplete our body of DHEA, because the body just focuses on cortisol. Cortisol is the only hormone that'll save your life. DHEA just helps life be worth living. So what happens is the DHEA levels tend to drop before the cortisol levels in the vast majority of people. So I'll have patients come into me, and their DHEA, and we have to do a relate it to their age. But if that DHEA is on the low side, what that means is that person's not just adrenal glands, but that person's whole stress response system is dysfunctional enough to have depleted that DHEA. Now that system is threefold, right? There's a hormone side, which ends in your adrenals. But then there's the nerve side, right? Your autonomic nervous system, and it's all controlled by this limbic system in the brain calling the shots. That system works together. I tease them apart to learn and to explain some things, and treatments might be a little bit different as well. But that system works as a system. And if the DHEA level is low, that system has been overworked long enough that it's stuck. And what that's caused is excess stress physiology, which is what contributes to all the symptoms, right? It's the wear and tear from stress physiology, which leads to all the chronic fatigue and the pain and the weight and the brain fog and the sleep problems and the anxiety, the depression, even the blood sugar, blood pressure problems, usually low in the beginning especially, but then they can go high. All that stuff is caused by excess stress physiology. And at the same time, now unfortunately, we're suppressing the organs of healing and repair, primarily immune, digestive, reproductive, and thyroid. And on purpose. We do that on purpose. It's well documented that happens. And we need that to happen. Conserve that energy. Don't waste energy fighting some chronic infection or digesting food or procreating. Like there's a tiger in front of you. You got to deal with that tiger first, and then you can turn that other stuff back on. So if you do that once in a while, saves your life. Do it all the time. Now, depending on where you're vulnerable, you're going to develop symptoms within those systems. So when that DHEA is low, all that stuff is happening. All that stuff is happening. And your cortisols actually might be okay, relatively normal. Sometimes they're a little subtly out of balance. And the tests that I use, I've been doing for 20 years. I've seen thousands of these tests, so I can pick out some of the nuances. But when the DHEA is low, all that stuff has gone south, which can significantly contribute to dysfunction within your body. People come into me, functional capacity, it might be relatively high, 60, 70, 80%, but it could be 10, 20, 30%, right? Where patients have to, maybe they can get a shower once a week, and then they got to lay down, and then they can dry their hair, and then they got to lay down again. And, people have to, have help, right? So it can be incredibly debilitating. So if cortisol is fine, that absolutely does not mean that your adrenals are okay. So that's the big thing. Okay, so Jalara says, as a follow-up, so should we take DHEA? It's a reasonable question. It's not that easy. If your thyroid is dysfunctional, you can pretty much just replace the thyroid, right? If your thyroid is low, you can replace thyroid hormone. It's not that easy with regard to adrenal fatigue and a low DHEA or even low cortisol, because that system is a very, what can I say? It's a very dynamic, nuanced, responsive system that's in constant flux. And when we end up giving a hormone, you're replacing that hormone, and that's an okay thing, but you're stiffening the reactivity of that system. Now, I'm not against giving DHEA. Giving DHEA is fine. I use DHEA more in men than women. For women, some women take DHEA and turn it towards testosterone. So DHEA is an androgen, more of a male-dominant hormone. Some women don't tolerate, a lot of women actually don't tolerate DHEA very well. So we might defer to use something like a precursor like pregnenolone or something like that. So I'm not against that. That's fine. But just by taking that hormone, all you've done is you're filling that hole, which is good, but you haven't fixed this broken stress physiology, nor have you fixed the secondary dysfunctions, right? So there's a lot more to this than just, say, replacing a hormone. Again, not that I'm against it, but there's way more to it. That's all. Welcome, everybody. I see that a lot of people have joined in. Let us know where you're from. We're really curious. We've got international programs and patients from all over the country for sure. We've been seeing a lot more international patients recently. So, patients from Angora and Turkey and where else? So New Zealand, Malaysia. I'm just thinking of the past couple of weeks, and it's interesting because what it tells me is that nobody treats adrenal fatigue well anywhere in the world. Certainly the UK and Canada and all that. Let us know where you're from. So we're very curious. Okay, Lori says, and as you join in, just if you have questions, I'll try to get to them. I've got a pretty good list of questions, but I'll try to get to them as best I can. Just put them in the comments. I'm pretty sure I have adrenal fatigue. I went to a functional doctor and he had me do some detox, workouts, sweats, made me feel worse. Stopped going to the doctor, didn't know what to do. Will detoxes help adrenal fatigue at all? No, you actually don't want to detox initially if you have adrenal fatigue. So what a lot of doctors will do, especially functional medicine doctors, is they'll make the mistake of just looking at the bucket and what's in the bucket. Right? And toxins are in the bucket, right? We all have this certain size bucket of tolerance for stress. And any and all stress goes into the same bucket, right? Because we only have one stress response system. We get the hormones, nerves, limbic system, and the brain. It's got to handle everything. So whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, toxins in the environment, viruses, injuries, accidents, trauma, abuse, especially head injuries, I should say, regular stress, relationship stress and work stress and traffic and politics, it all goes into the same bucket. Stress is stress is stress. So toxins are in there, right? So what a lot of doctors will do is they'll focus only on what's in the bucket, right? They're like, we got to treat your candida. We got to treat your toxins, right? You've got some metals. You got to treat your mold. You got to treat your Lyme, your Epstein-Barr, or whatever. And you might scoop a little bit out of that bucket, which is okay. I mean, it's not unreasonable, but chances are we're just going to fill that bucket up again because our stress response system is broken over interpreting its environment as stressful and dangerous, right? So we just keep filling that bucket back up. I mean, you can make a living, some doctors do, at chasing after some of these secondary dysfunctions. And I'm not against doing that, but you don't want to only do those things. Now, patients with adrenal problems, 9 times out of 10, when you detox them, they feel worse. Why? Because when your body is in stress physiology, detoxification is not engaged. And detoxification it's a rather complex process, right? 5 different organs working together, different phases, right? Not just your liver, right? But your colon and your kidneys and your lungs, even, and your skin, all working together to process toxins. We do it all the time. At least we do it all the time if we're not running from a tiger. Because when you're running from a tiger, you're not going to spend any energy on detoxification. Who cares about that, right? You got to deal with the tiger. So we go to try to artificially detox, right? And force somebody's body to detoxify. And you're going to make people feel worse because it's a rather nuanced process. So what I do is shift this physiology, right? Shift that physiology, turn off the wear and tear, turn on this healing and repair side of the physiology. All of a sudden, now you've turned on the cells of detoxification. Cells can do some healing and some maintenance, and they can process some stuff. So most of the time, I don't have to detox people because we've just allowed the body to do it itself. But then once you get the system more balanced, if you want to detox after that, then you could potentially, look towards doing that. Okay. There's more to that question. Sorry. So my pregnenolone and DHEA is extremely low. I just explained that DHEA. Hallmark. So pregnenolone is the precursor hormone. If those are low, you have adrenal fatigue. You got to full stop. Once somebody finds an adrenal problem, what you want to do is go full stop and focus your effort on fixing that. Because this adrenal fatigue thing sounds simple, right? It's not simple. When you have adrenal fatigue, you have a broken stress response system. And it's that stress response system that is literally controlling your entire physiology. And I know that's a bold claim, but it's true. So think about when we're in stress physiology, what happens? The body perceives there's a tiger. So we turn on the heart. Let's crank up the heart. You got to deal with this thing, right? Let's turn on the lungs. Let's crank those up. Let's turn on your sugar metabolism, right? Because you need fuel. You need immediate fuel. And what else happens, right? We turn off immune, digestive, reproductive, thyroid, all that stuff, right? So every organ is somewhere on this continuum, this balance between fight or flight and rest and digest. It affects every organ, every cell. That's what we have to fix. And that's why the symptoms of adrenal fatigue, they're so diverse, right? Throughout the body, it affects everything. Okay, so will supplementing with these, pregnenolone and DHEA, while trying to heal my adrenal fatigue be beneficial? Yes. I mean, if your doctor knows what they're doing, I do get my hormones tested regularly. I have hypothyroid and I'm on HRT. Right. So here's what we're looking at, Lori. There are three main hormone producing glands in your body, right? You got your thyroid, your ovaries, and your adrenals. And now what you're telling me is you have a dysfunction in each one of those, which is actually pretty common. So you're replacing ovarian hormones, probably replacing thyroid hormones, and now you're going to replace adrenal hormones. This system is incredibly dynamic. You can't just throw hormone replacement at it. You've got to work at do everything you can to get the adrenal glands especially back in balance, because it's the adrenals that are telling the ovaries and the thyroid what to do. They're always a problem. They're always suppressed with stress physiology. That's what happened. We know this. We know this very well. This is well documented in the literature. When you're dumping excess cortisol, that goes to your hypothalamic pituitary ovarian hormone axis, suppresses it at every step it can. Same thing with the thyroid, suppressed. We know this. So let's stop the suppression as opposed to just giving hormones to everybody, which is low-hanging fruit most of the time. Let's fix the underlying problem, stop the suppression. So that's really the key. And if you need guidance, I mean, I have patient coordinators who will have a complimentary call with you, right, to get guidance and understanding. Is it a fit? Do things make sense? So feel free. You can reach out. Just reach out in the comments if you have more questions that way. Okay. All right. And good luck. But hands down, your adrenals are broken. Your stress response system is broken, which is controlling your entire physiology. That's what you want to fix. I mean, you have to focus on that particular problem. And I mean, this is what we do, right? This is all we do. So I'll leave it at that. Danielle says, I gained 10 pounds this year. Never gained weight before. Lost all my pregnancy weight. Eat very clean, gluten, dairy, soy free. Consistently exercise. Nothing else has changed for me, but Why the weight gain? Well, it depends, Danielle. It depends on, where you're gaining the weight, right? Weight's always affected with adrenal issues, always. Some of my patients are weight losers. Some of them are weight gainers. One of the things that affects the weight from a stress physiology perspective is that, when we're in stress physiology, we tend to be in more of a catabolic state. And this depends a little bit. Are you running on adrenaline or are you running on cortisol more so? So it varies a little bit. But if you're running on adrenaline a little too much, that's actually going to keep your weight down. And certain people, it's a smaller subset, but when they get stressed out, they actually lose weight. They're weight losers. Now, most of my patients are the weight gainers. But what can happen with that is that when we shift that physiology and you're not running on adrenaline anymore, and you're eating the same diet and doing the same things, you can gain a little bit of weight. And it's to me, it's like a pendulum that just kind of swings back and forth until it finds middle. So I would suggest if you're gaining weight and you're calmer, right? Anxiety is down, sleep is better, it's less wiredness, motor running and all that stuff. That might not be a terrible thing. You just have to look at your calories and carbs and things like that. What it could also be, sometimes it's water weight, right? So if the number on the scale is up, usually not 10 pounds, but it could be 5 pounds. If the number on the scale is up, but you're not sure where that weight went, it probably just means, you were doing adequate salt, right? Because I know you're in the core, in the coach-driven program that we have, the Core Plus program. You might increase your salt, which means you're holding on to water better, which is a good thing. Like we think of holding on to water like swelling. Not always. You need water. That water's got to be in the cells. You need enough salt to hold that water in the cells. So it might just be that as well. So you got to play with that. And I would talk to your coaches because they can help guide you through that. Okay, Lewis says, hi, doc. Is it normal to get headaches and nausea when switching to a high-fat protein diet? It's possible. It's possible. So from an adrenal perspective, we want to be on a hypoglycemic diet, right? Hypoglycemic diet is small, frequent meals, more protein and fat, low sugar and carb. Why do we want to do a hypoglycemic diet? Because every time your blood sugar drops, that is a stress. That's a job for your adrenals to fix. They have to release cortisol. It goes to the liver to tell the liver to release a stored form of sugar into the blood so you don't pass out from that low blood sugar. So eat a diet that prevents the blood sugar from dropping. This is why intermittent fasting is a terrible idea if you have adrenal problems. And I can't tell you how many patients I've had come into me after some doctor, well-intentioned, told them to do intermittent fasting for their problems, right? Or they did some celery juice detox thing that's popular nowadays that just crashed people out. You don't want to do those things. So hypoglycemic diet, there's change, right? There's change that happens with regard to that. The body has to transition. The enzymes have to change and shift. The body has to get used to burning more fat and protein. Sometimes that can cause nausea, temporarily do that. The key thing, Lewis, is you just want to listen to your body, right? That's the biggest thing. Listen to your body. Okay, so second question. Long-term after healing, is intermittent fasting protocol with ketovore, 2 meal a day, a good aim? Oh boy, you're poking at me here, Lewis. That's how I eat. It's well documented that some form of time-restricted eating, like intermittent fasting, is the healthiest way to eat. Well documented. But the reason is because it stresses the body. And if you have adrenal problems, you cannot eat that way. And I could not eat the way I eat now. Way back in the day when I was dealing with my adrenal problems, I had to eat the hypoglycemic diet too for a couple of years, at least, right? Before my body was balanced enough to be able to tolerate that additional stressor. Just like exercise, right? Exercise and dieting this way is good, but these are stressors on your body. And if your bucket is full, you can add a good stress and have a problem. So you got to be careful with that. Okay. All right. Lauren says, is there a connection between a dysregulated stress response system and thyroid nodules? Clinically, have you seen them diminish with healing the stress response system? Okay. Yes. So there's a connection. I see a lot of my patients with thyroid nodules. Can I tell you it's a direct cause and effect? No. But can I tell you that your stress physiology controls your hypothalamic pituitary thyroid hormone axis? Yes. And when that is suppressed in certain ways, you're going to cause dysfunction in that gland. Sometimes you're going to cause an autoimmune thyroid problem called Hashimoto's. Sometimes you're going to cause, just thyroid, just dysregulation. Could that lead to nodules? I guarantee it could. I guarantee it could. And the vast majority of these nodules are perfectly benign. It's just a sign of dysfunction. Be cautious, get things checked out, and do what you need to do. And I believe I've also talked about some of these things on my YouTube channel. So a lot of this stuff I've gone way more in depth on YouTube. So you can kind of check out over there. But yeah, I mean, if there's thyroid issues, I'm always going to default and go and check on the adrenals. And one of the ways you can do that, so you want testing, right? Ultimately, you want testing because the right testing with the right interpretation can help to guide and fine tune things. But I have on my website, I've got a symptom assessment tool. So you can take this test, like a 4 or 5 minute test that I designed that, you just run through these questions, right? And, it's quick and easy, and it'll spit out the likelihood that you have adrenal problems, because with these adrenal issues, once you're around it enough, you can see it. And it's like, if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, we tend to know what we're dealing with, right? So maybe you want to check that out as well, Lauren. Okay. How long does it take to heal my adrenals? Sherry from Tennessee. Hi, Sherry. Oh, that's a pretty big question. Well, it depends. I mean, how good can you control your diet? How good can we be at figuring out what's in your bucket? How good can we be at poking enough holes in your bucket? How good can we be at expanding your bucket to its greatest capacity? How effective can we look at the diet and lifestyle factors, and how long has this been going on? How much, what kind of trauma are we looking at in the past? Like, there's a lot that contributes to this stuff. It takes time. But I can tell you that within the programs that we run, people start to notice shifts within 4 to 6 weeks. But what happens is, and healing from adrenal fatigue is really unlike healing from anything else. It's this incremental process, and it's not linear. But the goal of what we have to do is to shift this physiology, turn off the wear and tear that comes from stress physiology, and turn on the healing and repair. When you turn off the wear and tear, that means those symptoms will start to decrease in intensity, frequency, and duration. So I tell all my patients, 6 weeks in, 12 weeks in, you will still have all your symptoms, but they should be decreasing incrementally, right? Even 6 months in, you might still have some of your symptoms, but again, they should be decreasing incrementally. What I don't do is I don't give, it's not one drug for one disease or one drug for one symptom, right? Doc, give me something for my anxiety, give me something for my sleep, give me something for my mood, give me something for my brain fog, give me something for my energy. What about the pain? Like, you won't be able to eat. You'll be taking so many supplements. And that paradigm is based on the germ theory. One drug for one disease. I have a bug, take an anti-bug and you'll get rid of it, right? This condition does not fit that. Most chronic conditions these days do not fit that old paradigm. We have to look at this a little bit differently. So it's incremental. And there's definitely some ups and downs throughout that process, but that's why the most efficient way I've found to heal this is with one of our programs. And so the programs we have, they're all based off of the way we used to treat patients, right? Because we have a guest house on our property. People used to come from all over the world. We'd have people come stay with us for a couple weeks, couple months even, to get treated. And those people did really well. They were in my office every day for a couple months. I mean, no stone was left unturned. So they did really well. Now, the problem is most people don't have the resources to come and hang out with us for a couple months and get that level of care. So the programs were kind of born out of that. One of my programs, I still have some space available that I work with patients one-on-one, this adrenal healing transformation, and the other program is run by coaches. The best way I know to be able to heal adrenal fatigue, because it's the frequency of contact that my coaches and I have with patients that allows us to figure out what each individual's puzzle looks like with regard to this condition, right? Because there's even some basic central puzzle pieces, but even those have a different size or orientation. And it's just this communication with patients to be able to figure that out. It's the most efficient way to get ahead of that. Okay, the Shape Lounge. What's your first step in helping patients with debilitating night sweats and hot flashes? Okay, Shape Lounge. Good question. So debilitating sounds pretty bad. Night sweats and hot flashes, generally, as long as it's a woman, generally is going to be related to ovarian hormones, right? And I have women in their 30s experiencing these kind of menopausal types of symptoms. So it can happen. It can happen at any age. The signs and symptoms that we associate with menopause are adrenal issues, not ovarian issues. Here's why. Your adrenals produce every ovarian hormone you have. And we don't talk about that a lot, right? I didn't learn a lot about that in med school for sure, but since I came out and since I started dealing with this problem, very strong association with my patients, my female patients with adrenal problems. When we fixed the adrenals, the menopausal symptoms tended to improve, or the other menstrual problems tended to improve. So as I dig into this, that's what I realized. So your adrenals produce all your ovarian hormones. It's an incredibly important relationship. It's especially important, after a woman's, 40, 45, 50, as the ovaries gradually decline, the adrenals start to increase their production of that hormone. In fact, postmenopausally, when we test a woman's ovarian hormones, most of them come from the adrenals, not the ovaries. So the key thing, if you have night sweats and hot flashes, is actually to go back to the adrenals and start fixing that problem. Now, the easiest thing, what most doctors will do is, put you on hormone replacement. I would prefer bioidentical hormone replacement, and I'm not against bioidentical hormone replacement, but we shouldn't need it. Women should not need bioidentical hormones. Women have been going through menopause for millennia, thousands and thousands of years without these fancy hormones. Shouldn't need it. Challenge is that time in and around menopause, that's another added stress in the adrenals. So now we have the menopausal symptoms, but also all the adrenal symptoms there as well. So we got to focus towards the adrenals. And there are some specific supports, and I can't make any direct recommendations for you. But the majority of my female patients go through these kinds of issues, and it improves. So these things can improve. Got to start with the basics, right? Got to start with the basics. Okay. Fanny says, why am I rejecting vitamin D? I don't know. Fanny. It's a good question. I don't know that I'm a vitamin D expert. I know that most of us are low in vitamin D, and most of us need supplemental vitamin D. So I generally put people on a fair amount of vitamin D. It's important. Vitamin D doesn't cause adrenal fatigue, but the better your vitamin D level, the easier it is to heal in general from anything. I'm not sure what rejecting means. I can tell you that the majority of people with adrenal problems tend to be on the sensitive side. Sensitive in many ways. Sensitive as far as, we can even be emotionally, psychologically sensitive. We tend to care more than the average person in that way. But we can be chemically sensitive too. We can be immunologically sensitive. So we have reactions, allergies, histamine issues, things like that. And we can be sensitive to supplements. So not uncommon. And again, I don't know what's going on with the vitamin D. I mean, maybe if you're here, you're somewhat drawn to this concept of adrenal fatigue. I would check out the symptom assessment tool and check that out. If you have adrenal fatigue, that would explain why the sensitivity just because we're sensitive. And as we shift this physiology, you become less and less sensitive over time. So yeah, good luck. Misha Ann, will correcting the HPA axis, HPA dysregulation make thyroid nodules go away and disappear? The potential is there. I've seen it. But it'll certainly get you to the point where you don't care about your thyroid nodules because you feel better and you stop going for testing and everything's fine and the thyroid numbers balance out. Because again, the thyroid is going to go in the direction that the adrenals tell it to go. We know that. And again, I didn't learn that. In med school. Most people don't talk about that. And it didn't even make sense to me because, so here's the thing, right? So we're in stress physiology. I get it. Suppress the immune, digestive, reproductive systems. You don't want to waste energy there. But why suppress the thyroid? Right? The thyroid's like the engine of your body. So why, if there's a tiger in front of me, why would I suppress the engine of my body, right? That doesn't make sense. But I do believe in the wisdom of the body. So the body's doing it on purpose, right? So to me, I came up with this analogy where if the thyroid is the engine of your body, the adrenals are like the oil and gas running that engine. And the body knows if you're overstressed, the body's burning through the oil and gas, it slows down the engine on purpose. And the mistake that a lot of practitioners will make is they just crank up somebody's engine. They're like, your thyroid's a little low, subclinical hypothyroidism. So let's just crank up the engine. But if you don't pay enough attention to the oil and gas, you can make yourself worse. You can crash things out. So if there's thyroid problems, I'm always deferring and looking towards the adrenals to see what else is going on. Okay. All right. All my best. Miracle says, hello, can adrenal issues cause body tremors and sporadic blood pressure and heart rate elevations or spikes, I'm guessing, or drops, even drops, after eating, stemming from the abdomen? Well, okay, so sporadic blood pressure, heart rate stuff, that's going to be autonomic nervous system issues, right? And there's always dysautonomia in this condition, right? Because that's it. There's three parts. It's not just the adrenals, right? It's the hormones, the whole HPA axis, the autonomic nervous system, and then the limbic system in the brain calling the shots. And that autonomic nervous system, it controls all your organs. And it's a relatively simple system. I mean, it really is. You have two nerves, which are like wires, right? Two nerves coming from the brain and spinal cord going to every organ. One of those nerves is your sympathetic nerve, right? Fight or flight, speed up the heart kind of stuff. And the other nerve is the opposite. It's parasympathetic, rest and digest, slow down the heart. And you can only turn on one really at any one time. And when that system is overused, it gets a little herky-jerky. So it makes mountains out of molehills, right? So we could have, for instance, a blood sugar drop, which for most people is a minor stressor. We generate a minor response and, people sleep right through it. They just don't even notice it. But now if you have adrenal problems, then, the blood sugar drops, minor stress, major response. I mean, we could feel like there's a panic attack, wake up in the middle of the night, like there's a tiger or whatever. And, all of a sudden, it's just this incredible over response. So it sounds like dysregulation, dysautonomia, and it potentially can be connected. It can be connected. All right, follow up on that. Head hurts, but not a headache. Not sure what that means. Dizziness, head unsettled. Is this brain fog? Dysbiosis, can this cause that? I mean, ultimately it's all connected. There's all kinds of weird neurological symptoms that my patients will have. There is neuroinflammatory process with this condition. So I keep talking about this wear and tear. What is that? What is that wear and tear? I don't have a chat on, maybe I quiz people at some point, but so that wear and tear is oxidative stress. When our body's in stress physiology, the exhaust, the metabolic exhaust from stress physiology within every cell are free radicals. And those free radicals are just little electrically charged molecules. They get released in the blood supply and they shoot around the blood, hitting organs and tissues, nicking them, damaging them, like pinballs in an old school pinball machine, bouncing around, nicking, including the brain. So too many of those free radicals overwhelm our body's antioxidant status, antioxidants bind those free radicals and neutralize them. So oxidative stress is basically what's going on, and that's what's responsible for really most of the symptoms. And if you look, if you Google or went to PubMed and looked at oxidative stress, it's connected to every chronic disease you can think of. Everything: autoimmune, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, metabolic disease. It's all connected to oxidative stress. So it also goes in the brain. So we also feel weird neurological things, neuroinflammatory issues. So again, ultimately, miracle, it's possible it's connected. The best way to know, the symptom assessment tool on my website, just run through. And if it fits, it fits. Looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. If you want to have a conversation with somebody, you can. Complimentary call one of my patient coordinators. Just reach out in the comments. Laura says, would you recommend that someone with adrenal fatigue quit their job in order to heal faster? I'm having a hard time convincing my husband that I should quit. Okay, so it's not an uncommon question. That's why I'm laughing. The reality is that one of the tasks that we have when I'm working with patients is we have to scoop as much space out of this bucket as we can. And your job is that your whole life is in this bucket, past and present, every single to-do, responsibility, whatever, it's all in this same bucket. Now, we don't have to empty the bucket. That's not the reality. You don't have to empty the bucket. But the more space we can create in this bucket, the more tolerance you have to stress and to your life, and the easier it is to shift this physiology. So when people ask me this question, and I've heard it before, the answer is you don't have to quit. But if you did quit, it would relieve a certain amount of stress and you would probably heal faster. Now, that is if it doesn't set you into poverty and then you have all these other various stressors. But, I have asked people like, do you have to work? And if you don't, slowing down, backing off, whatever it might, go part-time, something like that. Most of the time, though, I will say, Laura, I don't have to have people leave their current job in order for them to heal. But we do have to pay attention to the other stuff that's in that bucket as well. Okay. Good luck with that conversation. Jalara, what if you're ADHD and have chronic fatigue syndrome? I definitely won't go to a medical doctor because they can't treat me. No, that wouldn't help you. I'm allergic to certain medicines and some of them are life-threatening. Yeah. So, Dr. Posnecker before me, his first version of the book about adrenals he wrote is called The Adrenal Syndrome. In 2000, he rewrote it and he called it Chronic Fatigue Unmasked. One of the primary underlying contributing factors to chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia is this problem, is a broken stress response physiology. We'll call it adrenal fatigue. Adrenal fatigue, to be honest, it's a terrible name for this condition. I don't like it. There's no good name, unfortunately. There's no good, and there's been tons of different names for this condition, but there is no good name. One of these days we'll figure one out. So we're stuck with adrenal fatigue. Fine. Again, contribute even to the ADHD, right? When you dump a bunch of stress hormone in your brain, you'll have brain fog. You can't focus. You can't remember stuff. You can't, right? Puts tremendous pressure on your neurotransmitters, including dopamine. So there's a lot of connections there, Jalara. And you can fix it. You can fix it. You just have to have the right information, the right guidance, the right care, the right support. That's the biggest thing. Okay. Anonymous says, what is Dr. Neville's explanation for what causes post-exertional malaise? Okay. Good question, Anonymous. Mitochondrial damage. So the mitochondria, and I should say, stop and pause, welcome everybody. Let us know who you are, where you're from. We're always curious, right? And if you have any questions, put them down. I'll get to as many as I can. I'm probably going to run out of time. But I'll do the best I can. Okay, post-exertional malaise, mitochondrial dysfunction. So I talked about oxidative stress. Oxidative stress, free radicals, damaging, nicking tissue, damaging cells, getting into the cells, damaging the organelles within the cells. Take you back to your high school biology. Mitochondria are the energy producers in all of our cells, little batteries. They take energy from food and turn it into a universal form of energy we can use to do stuff, to do anything. Think a thought, build a neurotransmitter, move a muscle, whatever. Everything is driven by mitochondria. Every one of my patients, anybody with stress physiology, with this dysfunction, you're going to have mitochondrial compromise. Basically, the body just can't recover. It can't recover. And there's no quick fix for that. Right? And some practitioners will say, well, this chronic fatigue or this adrenal, it's a mitochondrial problem. And I'm like, yeah, but it's way more than that. You can't go trying to fix your mitochondria if your body's still stuck in stress physiology and you're still damaging the mitochondria. I mean, you'll sell a lot of supplements that way, so maybe it's good for business, but I'm not in the business of creating customers out of patients. Like, my goal is to fix this thing. Fix this thing with you. I can't fix it for you, and you're probably not going to be able to fix it by yourself, but together as a team, we can figure out what that puzzle looks like. We can fix this thing, right? Shift this physiology, turn off the damage, turn on the body's ability to heal and repair itself, right? Ramp up a protocol, balance you out, get this to shift, and then go live your life, right? Stay away from as many doctors as you can, including me. So you can fix it, but you can't just pick one thing, right? Is it connected? Yeah, sure. Is it oxidative stress? Of course, but it's bigger than that, right? All right. Sean says, my vitamin C is in optimal range. Should I still supplement? Yes. So I'm not sure what test you're using for vitamin C. There's no real great tests. I mean, sometimes you can get some intracellular vitamin C tests, but the reality is we don't make vitamin C. So vitamin C is ascorbic acid, pure and simple. And most mammals, thousands of mammals, most mammals make ascorbic acid on demand when they're stressed, because it's the main antioxidant, right? We talked about it, right? Stress, oxidative stress, we need antioxidants. So mammals that make it, and they make a ton of it when they're stressed out. Humans, guinea pigs, and some kind of fruit bat, we lost the ability to make ascorbic acid. We need to replace it on a daily basis, diet and supplements. So absolutely, you should be on additional ascorbic acid. All of us should. I mean, there's some doctors that contend that much of what we're dealing with today, chronic disease-wise, is subclinical scurvy, where our vitamin C levels they're just above the level that our teeth aren't going to fall out and our heart's going to fail because our connective tissue is so broken down because we don't have any vitamin C or ascorbic acid in our body. But we're not very far above that level. So we all need as much ascorbic acid our bodies will tolerate. Is there a relationship with strokes? Potentially, yeah. Because stress physiology, again, it causes neuroinflammatory responses. It also thickens the blood. So we see increased fibrin deposition. And that's a rough combination. That plus a little genetics that could cause some problems. So Harshika, and if I didn't pronounce your name correctly, I apologize. I'm 38-year-old with muscle weakness issue with leads to pain if I exert. Does this classify as chronic fatigue? I have low libido and puffy face in the morning. Okay. So muscle weakness, which leads to pain if you exert, oftentimes is connected to post-exertional malaise. That is a component of a diagnosis of chronic fatigue syndrome. If you wanted to know an official diagnosis, what that chronic fatigue syndrome diagnosis is, go to the CDC website and just Google it and look up. There's some specific parameters. I don't really care what that diagnosis, about that diagnosis. What I care about is the underlying problem. The underlying contributing variables that contribute to those symptoms of muscle weakness, of pain upon exertion, of chronic fatigue, of your low libido, and of your puffy face in the morning. Could all of those be connected to a broken stress physiology? 100%. 100%. I see it all the time. And if you have more questions about that, I mean, what you might want to do is talk to Christine. She's my head patient coordinator. Complimentary call. Just have a conversation. There's no pressure. It's just a complimentary call to help to educate and help you understand. Okay. All right. Mohammed says, is theacrine a good alternative for caffeine? Well, if that's the right term, I don't know what theocrine is. So sorry about that. I can't answer that. Um, there's no real good alternatives for caffeine, and caffeine is not, it's not all bad. I mean, it naturally occurs in some fruits and foods and things like that. There's even some research shows that it's okay from a health perspective. You just got to be real cautious with it. I'm less concerned about the caffeine that my patients are consuming. I'm much more concerned about the need for the caffeine. That's the biggest thing. It's the need for the caffeine. Because if somebody needs caffeine to function, it means their life is outpacing their capacity to live it. And boy, that only goes so far. So you got to be cautious. Okay, so I've got a bunch more questions, and I'm running out of time. So I'm gonna try to speed up a little bit. Christine says, "What are the most recent modalities to help rewire the brain for a more positive mindset?" Yeah, I mean, any kind of relaxation exercise will rewire the brain, right? Meditation, deep breathing, guided imagery, progressive muscle relaxation, visualizations, repetitive prayer, do a gratitude journal, challenge yourself, right? Challenge your brain, challenge your mindset, develop a mindfulness practice, be present, right? And then reframe it. When, there's glass half full people and glass half empty people. If you're glass half empty people, just keep challenging it. Whenever there's something that happens, if you go in this direction, step back, right? Step back, think it through, work through that process. There's nothing really new under the sun, but all those things will absolutely help. Gratitude journal. A gratitude journal changes the brain. We've seen MRI studies on literally rewiring the brain, and part of that negativity that a lot of us have is because our amygdala has hijacked our limbic system, which is turning everything into something fearful, something to worry about, something scary, right? Something negative. So you can rewire that in a lot of different ways. And those are, that's a snapshot. Good luck. Melissa says, those of us that do all those things and still have MS, what's missing from the equation, root cause of MS? MS is autoimmune, right? It's autoimmune neuroinflammatory process, right? I see autoimmune disease all the time in my patients because stress physiology suppresses the immune system, kicks it off, creates excess antibodies to things. And certainly, I work with autoimmune disease all the time, and I do see them improve. Now, depending on how advanced the MS is, sometimes we actually have to get into the brain. And there are certain natural substances that we can use to help to control the inflammatory response and shift, and also trigger remyelination within the brain. So there are protocols out there. Don't just accept MS as a chronic progressive disease. It's not. It can be fixed. So yeah, you just gotta dig a little bit, and you gotta think outside the box. Like, once somebody has an autoimmune disease, conventional medicine's like, I don't know what to do. Just take these immunosuppressive drugs or whatever. Or, there are answers. Rachel says, and yeah, good luck, Melissa. Rachel says, how is it that high cortisol can cause muscle weakness? That doesn't feel like I could run from a tiger. I thought weakness was associated with low cortisol. Yeah, it's a bit of a conundrum, but you can have it with both, right? You can even have fatigue. I have patients with high cortisol, and they're tired, right? Because they've exhausted their body, right? Like, picture yourself that you're a zebra running from a lion. I mean, how long would that chase last? Right, 30 seconds, 60 seconds if you're a fast zebra. And then if you live, you go curl up under a tree for a day and go graze again and deal with the next lion. We haven't been running from the lion for 30, 60 seconds. It's not even 30, 60 days. It's sometimes 30 to 60 years. It's debilitating, just debilitating. And some people can still sustain elevated cortisol even if they've been stuck in a stress response for decades even. That's a strong constitution. That's somebody with strong adrenal glands to be able to keep dumping that excess. But that excess cortisol is going to cause damage over time, and it's going to lead to problems. So don't get too stuck up on the cortisol being high, low, whatever. Look at the whole. You got to look at the whole picture, Rachel. So it's absolutely connected. Okay, Lauren says, in the case of children, how does their stress response system become dysregulated? How can you best support them from both a preventative nature and chronic? Can children inherit their nervous system from their parents? All right, Lauren. So we have research now that shows that you can look at the stress of a woman as she's carrying a child, and you could predict the stress-related illness that child will have in adulthood. It's a shared circulation, right, between mom and baby. Shared circulation, that's how baby gets nutrition. But if mom is stressed and say her adrenals aren't up to snuff, she'll borrow stress hormone from the baby, and that baby will gladly donate that stress hormone because if mom doesn't make it, I'm not going to make it. But during that, say 6 months, right, in utero, that baby's stress response system is like a pump that gets primed. Not just the nervous system, not just the hormones, it's the whole thing together. It's like a pump that gets primed. Now, you give birth, that baby's still cranking out all that stress hormone, but mom's not there to take it away. That baby's going to be irritable, colicky, probably won't sleep that well. And now mom has that baby, which isn't a stress-free scenario, and doesn't have that added stress hormone. So moms often take a dip. And in this country, if that gets bad enough, we call it postpartum depression. So that's basically how this thing gets transferred. So there's some genetics and then there's some epigenetic change. And the treatment is the same, right, for kids as it is for adults. We just start with the basics, right? You got to work on lifestyle stuff. You got to work on the diet, hypoglycemic diet. I saw adrenal problems in my daughter at a young age. And what we learned was that if we didn't get a snack into her face as soon as she got home from school, we were going to have a heck of a night, right? Because her blood sugar was tanking. And when the blood sugar tanks, the adrenals kick in to save the day. And then all mayhem happens, right? So the diet is a big one, right? The hypoglycemic diet is a big one for kids, and it's a big place to start. So it's all the basics. It's really all the same. It's really all the same. I mean, we tweak things, of course, with kids. So good luck. Okay, Brenda says, how am I doing? 3 minutes. I'm not going to do it. Brenda says, I'd like to know if adrenal fatigue is something that women from all cultures deal with or just first world countries due to all the stress. Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Brenda. It really is a disease of modern living, unfortunately. But we've seen this for centuries, at least. This condition has been there. Even Hippocrates talks about a condition that's similar. As our lives modernize, we see more overwhelm in this stress response system, and it's been called lots of different things. So 100%, it's a little more. It's a little more common. It's a little more common because back thousands of years ago, we dealt more so with hardship, like physical stress, right? And not insignificant. I mean, physical stress, but physical stress is less than mental stress, which is less than emotional stress. And this is where we hang out these days, right? Just think about the amount of information, the information overload that we have these days, right? The amount of stimulus that's thrown at us in our modern life. Right? Like right now, I've got lights coming at me. I've got 2 different screens, right? I'm trying to answer questions. The stimulus is incredible. When we do that on a daily basis, even driving a car, like believe it or not, driving a car is so foreign to us. Our bodies weren't made to go 60 miles an hour, trying to deal with all this stuff coming at us and driving a couple ton machine at the same time. Like the amount of stimulus and overload, and that's just driving a car. So modern life is really one of the, it's a big problem. It's a big problem. And I'm not saying you got to go live in the woods, but it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt. Okay. So I'm not going to be able to get to the rest of the questions, but what I'll wrap up with is that I said earlier, if you suspect that you have adrenal fatigue, go full stop and get after it. Fix it. Fix that condition. Now I'm in the process of finally have a writer to help me with my book for this. So we're working on that to try to get that information. I have this core program, which is information as well, just more in-depth information and guidance with regard to treatment, and it's helpful. But information, without kind of support and care and guidance is tough. Hands down, the best way to get ahead of this is to find somebody who does this and does this well, because this problem is controlling your entire physiology. You can't keep chasing after the hormone problems, the immune problems, the digestive system problems. And I know doctors say that, oh, that's the cause, that's the cause. Ask why. I always encourage everybody to ask one more why. I have MS. Why? You have an autoimmune problem. Why? Well, your immune system's out of control. Why? What controls the immune system? This, right? You have IBS. You have food allergies. Why? Your immune system's out of control. Why? This controls your immune system. You have ovarian hormone problems. Why? You've got hot flashes and night sweats. Why? Well, my estrogen's low. Why? I'm menopausal. No. I mean, kind of, right? But you got to deal with those underlying issues, right? Ask one more why. Push your doctors to ask one more why. Figure out the underlying problem, the root cause of the root cause. That is the key. And if you have any questions, reach out. We're here. All my best. Take care. Bye.